Are we on? Excellent. Welcome all to the fourth session of the day, OTT and CTV, the strong momentum for programmatic video advertising. Apologies for starting a few minutes late with our remote setup. We had a couple of technical difficulties. I'm going to take that. My name is Andrew Rosenman. I'm the Vice President of Digital and Sales for Olympusat Networks. And I will allow the panelists to introduce themselves, beginning with Gerald from Smart Ad Server, our host.
Hello everyone, I'm Gerald Sauvageon from Smart Ad Server. I'm SVP Video for Addressable TV, and I'm happy to join this session with the folks to discuss the interesting topic.
Charles?
Hello everyone, I'm Charles Betcher. I am the Director of Programmatic and Platform Sales for Vevo. Pass it over to Mike.
Hi everyone, Mike Fisher. I head up Advanced TV and Digital Audio for Essence.
Excellent. And I believe we will have Melissa Hillard. At some point, she may be running late for our panel today. Just to restate our topic, it's quoted as Addressable TV comes of age with OTT and CTV, and related to programmatic advertising. I think I saw some news today that demand remains strong for streaming and OTT. I'm not sure if you saw that, Mike, this morning, while broadcast and television and the upfront commitment seems to be continuing its momentum, falling off a cliff. I'd like to start by talking about what we want to cover today, which is the topic of OTV and connected television and programmatic advertising, the degree to which that is accelerating, possibly at the expense of other formats, and also to allow for, if there are questions for those who are tuned in and answering, please go ahead. There's a Q&A box, I believe, in your Zoom. Please go ahead and post them there. We are leaving time at the end for those questions. And when the group met earlier, we agreed to also make sure that we clarify what we mean by over the top and what we mean by connected television. So I'm going to start with Mike and work my way back, and let's see if we all have agreement on what we mean when we say OTT and CTV.
Yeah, so I think the thing that's important to always remember is that all premium digital video being streamed outside of a traditional television distribution environment is OTT, but what connected TV, CTV means is having that content appear on the biggest and most trusted screen, the TV screen. In the living room space, the bedroom space, the 10-foot space, those are all implementations of OTT content in a connected TV, CTV environment.
Charles, do you agree from the Vevo perspective?
Yes, when we tend to use some of these terms a little interchangeably, as does the industry, but I agree with Mike's assessment on that. What we're essentially talking about here is premium content on the biggest screen in the house, being viewed in sort of a traditional manner, actually, but being delivered through digital mechanisms.
And Gerald?
Yeah, I agree with what has been said. For us, it's a video that is delivered dependently of the PTV service, regardless of the device. And also connected TV is more video watch on TV with internet connectivity. And I can say most of the time in the industry use also the term OTT to refer to services. So it's quite difficult for people to understand what's behind OTT, CTV, more than set-top box, which is straightforward.
Excellent. Okay. So now that we know what we're talking about, and I think we're going to get back to the importance of the fidelity and formats of the 10-foot view, as Charles put it, as well as Mike. So I'm glad we have this group here today. We have a prolific publisher of music video content in Vevo. We have somebody representing the buy side from Mike from Essence. And we also have the technology that would connect a buyer like Mike to inventory from somebody like Charles. And then there's myself, who's just going to try to organize this circus of a conversation. But where I want to begin is, how does Vevo, and Charles, I'm sorry to put you on the spot first, how do you coordinate all of your points of distribution then for a buyer like Mike? Because we know that Vevo appears not only in other online web platforms, including the dominant platforms like YouTube, but in some of what used to be your own branded environments. Can you help us understand from a publisher perspective how you differentiate your inventory for a buyer like Mike?
Yeah, of course, happy to kick this off. And I think for those who are less familiar with Vevo, maybe, we are a joint venture between Universal Music Group, Sony Music Entertainment, and we are essentially the custodians of their most valuable content, which is their official music videos. And we've been given, the ability to both distribute and monetize this content basically across the board and globally. And what we have seen over the last couple of years is, the natural shifts that everyone is familiar with as it relates to viewership, platforms, and people looking to find content, as I mentioned before, on the biggest screen in the house. And what the strategy for Vevo has really been is leaning into these platforms, the Rokus, the Samsungs, the virtual Mvpds of the world, and shifting away, as you mentioned, from an owned and operated perspective, and really focusing on putting our content in the places where there are viewers and audiences already, and doing it in the formats that they are comfortable viewing. So if that's a Samsung or a Pluto, that looks like a linear channel. If that's Roku, Apple, that looks like search on demand, which we have a lot of experience doing from YouTube as well. And the idea here is that we can be that one-stop shop, ubiquitous distribution across all these endpoints, and create a really scalable premium opportunity for our brand partners.
Mike, are you accepting Charles's presentation of what he can do for you and your clients?
I do. I think, the important thing, and we talked a little bit about this on the prep call as well, is to ensure that for TV clients, for clients who are used to buying a TV-like experience, make it look as much like TV as possible. So multiple things streaming in one episode, being able to quilt together what looks like a 30-minute or 60-minute block of content with ads interspersed for TV buyers, but then taking still account the best of digital when talking to digital buyers in an on-demand environment. So, as Charles was saying, different formats that mirror different ways people are watching, depending on the device and depending on the type of content, is super important.
So Gerald, you sit at the point of exchange between buyers and inventory. And so as those buyers are seeking out the most relevant, the highest fidelity formats, the inventory that will drive outcomes for their business, how does Smart act as the intermediary between these two sides of the media equation?
Yeah, we see more and more content owners that are coming to us, like OTT apps or CTV apps, and they want to onboard the AVOD business model just to drive new revenues or access new audiences, and this drive a high scale of available inventory. And of course, they are mostly on all devices now because they take the ownership of the distribution. As before, they were signing agreements, and per country, for example, now they want to choose where they distribute their content on which devices, and also they want to work program like in a TV way, so managing like ad rules, securing environment for programmatic access with programmatic guarantee. So Smart basically, we help our client to build an independent advertising platform so they can operate advertising, no matter if it's direct or programmatic, on any devices, any ecosystem. So for example, we are working with Samsung TV, where we have apps that are distributed on a mobile store, and they want to monetize live and VOD content. So we are bringing them three main core modules, which is the ad server, of course, to manage inventory, the SSP to connect to the premium demand, premium DSP. And also now we have a DSP that we have in our portfolio for over the last 6 months, because we know there will be a need for also for this player maybe to have access to a demand platform to package inventory. Basically, we unified the view of direct and programmatic inventory, because when you are coming as a standalone OTT apps, it's difficult to address all the monetization needs from advertisers. So sometimes we know that buyers want to buy, like with Nielsen data, because they need to be secure about the audience that is on the content. Sometimes we are selling programmatic through vertical of content segmentation. And also we saw that all these apps are trying to sign agreements with a platform like Samsung and Roku, because they need also some scale when they are pushing their standalone offer.
So it seems that the platforms themselves are becoming more powerful than they used to be. So formerly, online platforms were somewhat passive, even though they took a toll on some of the advertising. Something, Mike, that you mentioned is that it seems that publishers are seeing some of their control being lost to the platforms. I'd like to hear your perspective on that, and then I'd like to hear from Vevo in terms of how they feel about how they manage control with their platform partners.
Yeah, I think the important thing to remember is that at the end of the day, there are buyers and there are sellers, and there are a lot of different ways to connect them. And the value that the sell side, the SSPs and ad servers add to the sellers is very important to keep in mind. So making sure that a sell side platform is able to have a unified ad decisioning system that takes into account business rules that the clients may be setting in their systems, competitive separation, frequency capping across the board, better knowledge of who's watching from a device ID and analytics perspective. All of those things are ways that the ad tech middle layer is able to better service the publishers, creating solutions that aren't just a standalone SSP, aren't just a standalone buying platform or a standalone ad server, but really take all of that and wrap it up together into one solution so that publishers are better able to monetize and control their own destinies.
Well, I think does that sound desirable to you then, Charles?
Yeah, I think a lot of that is definitely fair, and is a lot of the ways in which we look at our ad stack and how we monetize our inventory. I think the thing to keep in mind, right, is that there is still a lot of uncertainty out there, and not just given current circumstances, but how this market continues to evolve, and there's no real silver bullet on how to buy some of this stuff. There is a ton of great work that the platforms themselves do. As I mentioned, they are our partners that we love working with, and really are those pipes for us to get our super valuable content out to our audiences. At the same time, we look at ourselves as that one-stop shop content source that can be a super scalable partner across the board. So I think it's about offering flexibility, which I know is sort of the buzzword of the moment right now, but it really is about, offering flexibility when it comes to buying types, how we package our inventory. There's a really healthy mix of what we do that is both direct, programmatic guaranteed, PMP, but a lot of it is in that lens of one-to-one direct relationships with buyers, having those conversations, figuring out what their goals, KPIs are, and then recommending a solution that is going to be both scalable and actually meets the goals of the campaign. So I think it sort of depends on what is happening, within the larger ecosystem, and then down to the client and campaign level. How do you package and serve your clients in the best way possible?
Right. And building off of that, I think what we see is a lot of times clients will tell us, we want to execute programmatic, we want to do this, this, and this. What they really mean is they want a more data-informed buy. They want a better control of who's being served to. They don't necessarily mean that it needs to be especially for TV, traditionally programmatic with open auction and bidding. They just want some sort of added efficiencies that could be part of a direct buy, either programmatic guaranteed or even an IO that's run through some sort of monetization platform that the publisher controls that gives more data and insights on the back end.
So Gerald, I know you've been working hard towards that. It sounds as if the platform side needs to service both sides of the buying equation. So what is your perspective then on what, you know, both of your potential customers here have to say?
Yeah. So just to add up on what has been said, we have to bear in mind that TV, there's no viewability issues, you know, being sure have been viewed. It's a big screen, audience is engaged, so it's not like a mobile device. I mean, in terms of size of the screen. So when we have OTT content owners or OTT apps that are coming to us, for sure they are asking which demand you can connect to us. So we see 3 ways for them to connect with the demand. So you can sell for sure inventory as an individual OTT or CTV apps. For this, you need to have a relevant minimum of audience. And today we saw apps that are between 500K, I mean Europe, 800K, 1 million users, which 1 million it starts to be considered by advertisers. Below, it's quite hard. So what we do, we expose this inventory to a premium DSP because the premium DSP are really looking also to source premium inventory like Trade Desk and the other one for their advertiser, their partner. And doing that way, they can on their site package some inventory, and you can be part of a larger plan if they think you have relevant audience, you have brand safe content, brand safe environment. The third one is to join, like I said, the platform like Roku or Samsung TV, because first this platform are selling on their side inventory, like Samsung, the Samsung ads, they are packaging inventory with brand safe vertical, premium vertical on different content. So they can sell your inventory on their side. And you can use this proxy to go and sell the same inventory to direct buyers. So basically, it can be hard for a standalone app, except if you have a niche content where you drive niche audience that advertiser has some issue to target this audience. But across screen with CTV and OTT, this is the 3 main ways we are helping our partner to be exposed and to be surfaced by barriers. And also we are working on the pay TV operator, you know, we are activating set-top box, addressable TV on set-top box. So this is on top of the streaming content on these OTT CTV devices. And we can see that there is also a bridge between this type of distribution for content owner, because you are adding an extra value proposal for advertiser being able to target us all through the set-top box distribution.
It's good that I'm glad you brought up set-top box, but it does bring up the question of equivalent measurement and the availability of that for somebody like, you know, Mike, who needs to make sure that he's measuring in real time and properly, as well as for Charles and for the publisher, who once they've released it to a, you know, an MPEG-2 traditional distributor has, you know, arguably less awareness of its viewership.
Yeah, but I think the proposal of the addressable TV on set-top box is basically you can have you have the reach of TV with the advantage of digital targeting, and still people are looking more and more, you know, on-demand content on their TV set. And these people, if you want to target the low TV users, they will be on the TV set through the set-top box. So it's really a complementary access of inventory that can be really aligned with the other type of inventory on CTV and OTT.
Excellent. I'm glad we sort of got this way. I think it's probably a good opportunity for us to transition from formats to targeting and segmentation, and in terms of finding audiences across CTV and OTT platforms. and the question of, and I'll bring this question back to Charles on how he surfaces these segments, and to Mike on how he finds them and how he values them. Is a segment, or somebody who exists within a segment, is the impression to that person equivalently valuable in different formats? But before we go into that, I'd like to welcome Melissa Hillard.
Hello all. Bonjour. Thank you.
Bonjour. Bienvenue. Welcome to the boat.
Thank you very much. Yeah, my Uber was late. I apologize for that.
Okay. Fortunately, we're not at sea, and you were able to just find us here at the dock. So yeah. Welcome, Melissa. We're glad you're here. I think you're coming at an excellent time, actually, because we're just beginning to talk about segmentation of audiences and how those segments are valued across CTV and OTV relative to other platforms. I'll let you settle in. We'll give it to Mike, and then we'll get to you in a moment. So Mike, in terms of what you're asked to do to discover specific audiences, and in terms of how you determine on behalf of the brands that you work for, how much they're worth and how much they're worth by platform, can you help us understand what that process is for you?
Yeah, so that's one of the challenges that I think is facing the industry as a whole. As we start to have the opportunity to look at the TV screen as part of a full funnel marketing message. So as TV impressions become more measurable in terms of aligned with what people have been doing online for years, I think a lot of the work that we on the buy side is doing right now is educating the clients around how to make their TV spending work a little bit harder and look more like digital, with the ultimate goal to better align the impact that first impression on the TV screen has to full funnel measurement, attribution, reporting, all of the key down funnel metrics that marketers are looking for. So whereas historically thinking TV was upper funnel used for brand building, unless you were buying DRTV, obviously, to tell a story over the course of 2 weeks, 2 months, even 2 years in some cases from a branding perspective. Now, for the first time, technology has really allowed clients to see the impact that those branding dollars have tied to performance in TV. And then how does a TV impression become more valuable for us to buy based on our understanding of the users, the audiences, the people associated with the households, and the actions that they may take post-exposure.
So I'm actually going to hand it to Melissa, since I know she's here. And well, first, I'd like you to introduce yourself to the folks who have been anxiously waiting your arrival.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Melissa Hillard. I'm the Director of Advanced TV and specializing in OTT for Omnicom Media Group here in New York.
Excellent. Thank you. So with regard to what we just heard, do you agree that it's possible that the big screen, the 10-foot view, is now capable of doing more than just that upper funnel awareness and consideration work on behalf of brands? And if so, how? And is that the unique and special property of connected TV and OTT?
I think it absolutely is capable of doing that, as long as you're using the right data to both inform and measure how you go about purchasing the big screen. I think it's still kind of the bluntest media mix element that we're still buying on a broad demo, whether that's an 18 to 49-year-old. Again, knowing that we have a wealth of smart TV viewership data and a wealth of actual client data from a first and third party perspective, we can now marry that to what people are actually seeing through the screen to better inform who we purchase, but also measurement. And I will say measurement typically will come first, because as we continue to pump these incredible ad loads of linear TV ad inventory into that live marketplace, we're basically reaching, I would say, an audience that's 55 plus at an egregious frequency. So how can we even that tide so we better inform our buys to hit our actual audience that we want to hit from an 18 to, let's say, 44 perspective, and then also kind of stop wasting that money to an audience that we don't necessarily need to hit anymore.
So we spoke about that a little earlier, and maybe for the folks who are watching, I know you have a very sort of thoughtful and detailed perspective on frequency and overfrequency through television and linear viewing and how you level that off. Can you expand on that a little bit, because it's fascinating?
Sure. Yeah, so we use a chart, and we love trending charts, year over year, to really show that drastic decline or increase, both from linear live viewing as well as the growth of CTV, especially now with COVID. And I think what we had seen, this was even prior to COVID, so this was in January, that we had lost 43% of all 18 to 24-year-olds watching live linear prime time, which as consumers, we know, right? Nobody's sitting down and waiting for them, for NBC to play This Is Us. You can watch it on your own time. But I think our industry is still on this kind of archaic currency, hoping that people are going to watch live TV and just wait for this egregious ad load that we're used to buying on behalf of our brands. So because of that, we're almost at this convergence of convergence, which we've said. So our industries are converging with both linear and digital, but how do we converge teams? And how do we converge that conversation to re-educate all sides of our party to better inform how we spend linear dollars to drive brand goals?
So, Gerald, is there a place for a technology platform to help to reconcile the archaic currency with the current and modern sort of measurement currencies, and for a trusted third party other than Nielsen, possibly, to be able to reconcile this on behalf of the buy side and also on behalf of publishers, who I think trust in that currency is going to be critical for it to work?
I think Mike knows better than us that it's difficult, and Melissa also. The measurement is it's quite the biggest issue today, because you have an ecosystem that are in silo. If we talk about platform, Roku is doing measurement on its side. You have Samsung TV, you have other environment, and when you want to reconcile all the audience and the targeting for the targeting and reporting, it's almost impossible. I think Nielsen is making quite a lot of efforts to address this measurement across screens. But basically, you have to consider today how advertisers also address their media plan. We see some linear first with GRP audience assessment and targeting and reporting. For example, on live OTT with SSI technologies. You have a digital first OTT inventory buying, where you have more way of tracking and assessing the audience. But what you have two words: you have a cookie-less environment, and you have like more as an entity way, and you have a real cookie on the digital side. So I think it's too early to. I know that there are initiatives. Again, the operators are working on that in Europe, in each country, to have a common measurement system for the broadcasters, for example. But it's difficult today to make this. Having said that, we know that, for example, with programmatic guarantee, it's easier because you can activate it on any type of devices, any type of for the direct programmatic transaction. It's easier to measure and assess audience targeting. But in terms of measurement, it's going to take some time to be able to make this reconciliation between devices. Yeah.
So, Charles, as a publisher, right, in terms of your ability to sort of express your inventory in a way that is measurable and accountable to Melissa and to Mike, what practices is Vevo putting into place to sort of meet that need?
Yeah, I mean, that is something that we think about 24/7, especially as we look to basically, work with different types of platforms with, different rules and challenges with how they operate, and bring, like I said, one solution to market that can be a scale-driven partner across, different endpoints. I think the way we look at it is yes, we want to get there, but in the meantime, as we're starting to figure things out, it's what is the difference between, like, I think Mike referenced, data-driven buying versus actually data-targeted buying, and how do you kind of find the right balance of those things within the funnel? So, us being a music platform that, hits on entertainment and pop culture. It's what insights can we gain into our audience that can help actually meet KPIs or to actually drive to targeted audiences using our contextual environments and contextual relevancy. Because I think the other thing that is a huge factor in all of this is we all know there's a lot of scale out there, but where can you find scale against premium and brand safety as well? And when you go and layer on data at this point, we know there's not one silver bullet for that. So there's got to be the right mix of contextual, of those TV buying, and then using these platforms to help actually drive down the funnel and use this CTV OTT as it is intended to be, which is the best of both TV and digital.
Right, contextual is so important to be able to layer onto an audience, because the old school buying was, let's buy Bravo because women are watching Bravo. That's not true anymore. That was never true. It was the best we can do. But you also don't want to swing too far to the right and say, hey, let's only buy addressability everywhere. You do need to have that blend of contextually relevant for the brand and brand safe, coupled with the ability to do addressable audience targeting and better understand who's in a household from an age demo, purchase action, lifestyle group, and then find the right contextual content to add on to that as well. It's not one or the other, it's both.
So Melissa, from a planning perspective, this sounds, for those of us not in the planning business, this sounds incredibly complex. You need to assess the value of the platform. You need to assess the value of the content provider. You need to be able to reconcile the first and third party data that you're bringing to it across those platforms. And they're not harmonized, are they?
No, and I would say, unfortunately, it's almost easier to do that in the linear space with first and third party data against smart TV. It's because I think the audience first space of premium content, a lot of those companies are keeping their data so close to the vest. So I think, again, with data as currency and power in this audience first world, it's almost easier to bring it to the content first world, because that's kind of the first touch of using data to activate in a smarter way. But with the audience first digital legacy world, let's say, they know data is the most valuable part of their business. So it's kind of working with them in the right way so that we not only have one more walled garden, but can actually prove out the value of their inventory, hitting that incremental audience of, let's say, 18 to 34-year-olds that we can't find on TV right now.
Have you done any A/B testing to say, and this is a jump ball for anybody, to determine whether or not all of this proprietary first-party data, that's coming from publishers, no offense, Charles, right, and third-party data, and even if it's brand data, if a contextual plan drives business outcomes as well or better as a data-infused plan that makes use of all these data segments, the hygiene of which is still open to question, and it's an open question to the panel.
I think to Mike's point, you don't want to over-optimize either, right? I think right now we're trying to move away 18 to 49-year-olds that are measured by 40,000 households that are clicking a button when their TV's on. So again, how can we still transact on that currency, but bring data, whatever flavor that is, to better inform and measure? And I think, again, and Gerald was saying this earlier, like, we're not there yet, but let's embrace progress over perfection, which is also a difficult conversation to have with clients. We're kind of in a state where we can't say we don't know, let's figure it out anymore. And we haven't been able to do that for probably, I would say, 8 years. And so it was social, programmatic, CTV, all these different facets that we all had to be experts in.
So, Mike, have you cracked the code for everybody watching this webinar?
Sorry, my Alexa just started talking. What was your question?
Can we turn on your Alexa remotely?
I was trying to very subtly turn on the air conditioning and it didn't hear me. So, sorry, what was the question?
Oh, man, why do you need air conditioning?
I know. Yeah.
So I'll restate it and I'll leave it open. The question is all this data, as you know, the oil and the new great commodity, is it a little overstated?
That's a good question. I don't think it's overstated. I think that there is becoming the expectation from clients that data is being used to the fullest ability of the platform, not necessarily of the data set. So if you're taking a step back and you're looking at the advanced TV landscape more broadly, not just OTT and CTV, but data-driven linear, data-informed linear buying, which is still one to many, as well as walled garden addressability inside of a cable box environment, there's a spectrum of how to leverage the data there. If you have this data asset, so let's say you have frequent Tide buyers as a data asset, and you know the person this household has not bought Tide in 6 weeks and is probably out of laundry detergent. In an addressable on-demand streaming TV environment, target that household one-to-one and say, it can even be messaging that says, hey, you're probably out of Tide because the last time you bought Tide was 6 weeks ago because we have your store purchase card data. So that's true household level addressable targeting in a digital environment. That's, for lack of a better word, easy to do because we've been doing that in digital video, online and mobile for years. As long as there's a device graph that can map that to CTV, that's possible today. The next iteration of that is to pass that data to an operator like a Comcast or a DirecTV and say, find those viewers in addressable video on demand content inside of your walled garden. And in that case, we as an agency or even a DSP is ceding control to the publisher to leverage their technology pipes and platforms to find those users and deliver the ad to them. And then all the way to the right side of the spectrum, there's data-driven linear, which is still one-to-many buying, but using data to better inform when your target audience of potential Tide buyers is likely to be watching TV, what shows and networks they're watching as well, so that you're over-indexing and reaching those viewers. Now, all of those are very different implementations, but they're all implementations of advanced TV. And most importantly, they're all using that same, here are people who buy Tide data set across the board.
I hope your Alexa didn't pick up you needing Tide right now, Mike, because that was a lot of purchase intent that she's listening to.
It'll be there tomorrow, Mike.
I'm sure it's already shipped. She's always she's on top of that stuff.
I do want to pay attention to our Q&A box. We have a question from Greg Rogers. What are the major obstacles preventing those agencies, brands, and marketing professionals from using more OTT ads? Is it attribution? Is it cost? Is it data? Is it newness? Is it fear of the unknown? Is it fear of being fired? Is it all of those things?
Yeah. Hey, Greg, good to hear from. It wouldn't be a panel unless Greg was asking a good question like that. So yeah, that's a good question. I think it is a combination of it historically has been difficult, and there's been nobody on either the buy or sell side in a role to kind of be the one to put it all together to help streamline. So, you know, I'm 3 months into my agency career. What I'm finding is there's unbelievable appetite to do all of this stuff. It's just new, so there needs to be somebody to kind of roll up their sleeves, shepherd it through, get it done once or twice, and then figure out how to commercialize it inside of an agency to really get the teams to understand that it is possible, it is easier than you think, and a lot of the confusion around it is just because it is new.
So, Melissa, you know, helping out our rookie who's only 90 days in, sort of helping bring people over to the future of television and media. Do you have any guidance for Mike?
Oh, I mean, please. I feel like it's a different internal pitch, right? When you're talking to the video investment team, the digital investment team, the programmatic team, the strategy team, there's kind of different ways to explain it is like for like, but we all need to work together. And I feel like, unfortunately, kind of people have become so specialized in their craft that now we need to kind of forget what we know and work to build what we can build together versus be so siloed and disciplined with a certain type of activation piece. Because what we're talking about now with OTT, it's basically bringing, I would say, 4 worlds together. And again, we know it's going to be great. We want to embrace it, but it's hard to break down those walls, especially at an agency, Mike, as I know you know.
Right. So Charles, you're in your direct sale, you have the same, right? You're possibly, you know, carrying the same weight that these two are when you're trying to articulate the value. Any help for these two?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that there has been, despite the fact that like we've been having this conversation for the last few years now, I still do think that you know, you see a lot of people going back to the things they know with working with FEP's broadcast networks, with the platforms themselves, and that's great, and they provide fantastic solutions. But I think that you know, for someone like Vevo, where we play in different buckets and can provide different you know, different things for different buyers, what we look to do is try and, I guess, be sort of an educator on how, you know, a publisher, a content provider operates and lives within these ecosystems. And I don't think that there's as much of the buying community that is thinking about the specific strategies where they go, you know, kind of the publisher content first in some of these things that they buy. So I think we look at it as a great opportunity to educate, to work with the different teams, to try and, you know, bridge the gap that happens sometimes with different agency teams and with a lot of people trying to figure out where the investment responsibility goes. You know, we look at it like that. And I think I go back to education, right? There's a lot of buyers that I think they look at some of this stuff and they're not exactly sure like how much they're going to get from a specific content provider when they go to a platform, or what is the right mix of all this stuff. So we work hand in hand with, you know, with the Melissa, Mike, and all of these other teams in the market to try and provide best recommendations of how we fit within that mix. What is the right kind of buying and planning situation? And again, like trying to be as transparent and open as possible when we have these conversations, because we do think that there's a lot of unknown out there still, but if you can kind of defer back to those partners that you trust and have worked with for a long time, then they can help guide you through the process.
Thank you. I want to make sure that we.
Right. Oh, sorry. No, I was gonna actually answer a second question that I saw in the chat based on the what he just said, which is buying from the partners that you know and the partners that you trust remains paramount. So even if you're buying via programmatic pipes or buying via deal IDs, it's always important, at least from my approach, to make sure that there is some communication going on with the end seller, to either ensure that you're buying who you think you're buying from, you're able to take advantage of a broader upfront conversation and execute that programmatically. And that really is how to protect yourself, getting back to that question, from ad fraud or invalid traffic, which is to always know who you're buying from, to always buy from trusted premium sellers, and to have a hybrid old school 3 martini lunch approach, but still going in, talking to the end seller, and then executing that via the pipes.
So do the platforms, these aggregators, right? So you'll have, you know, your Roku channel, and you'll have your Samsung TV Plus sales, and you'll have the others who are aggregating some of this inventory, right? And you'll even have aggregation, you know, content aggregation platforms like Sling, right? Who are also in the marketplace. Are they a trusted partner, or is the rights owner like Charles and Vevo the trusted partner? Or are they both trusted partners?
Yeah, I think they're both trusted partners, but that former bucket drops off fairly quick. So you do have Roku. Well, Sling is in a different bucket because they're an actual TV service. But from an aggregation of premium content, you have Roku and Samsung, Vizio and LG really leading the charge, because they've taken the approach of, let me be that new generation cable bundler. Let me take, you know, validate the app is what you think it is. Be sure that you're buying what you're getting, and not put screensavers or fraudulent traffic or channels that you're supposed to leave on for your dog while you're at work. That's not what's inside of their inventory portfolio. So like Roku is taking the right approach there. But that said, it does drop off fairly quickly. And I could count on one hand the number of aggregators that I feel comfortable buying from.
Interesting. Melissa? Same? Different?
Yep, exactly similar to Mike's approach. Really, that's our presence or our approach as well. And again, trying to understand, you know, with the Roku channel, great, this is a new audience. How can we complement our current buys with FEP to find that incremental reach? So kind of working out that math arithmetic problem, but yeah, completely aligned there.
Okay. And I do see another question from Alexandre Henot. that we have issues delivering video ads through digital programmatic supply due to ad specifications. So in terms of some of the mechanics of making sure that campaigns can deliver, that the beacons are firing, that they're being read and reconciled, what is Smart doing to help reduce some of the technical friction that it sounds like still remains?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if you consider the buyer front, we have the connection with all the premium DSP, and that's our job to connect the pipes to make that we are in the last integration phase. And this is the way we are maintaining this relationship with this DSP. On the sell side, as I said in the introduction, you have the OTT content owner that are coming to us and they say, I want to be on Samsung, I want to be on Android, I want to be on Apple TV. So our role also is to maintain this and make this third-party connection. So for them, it's easier when they are working. So when they sign agreements to be on Samsung's ad store, for example, Samsung has already some technology in place. They have Sprinter, they have Magi as SSAI. So we are integrating with this technology. So we are ensuring that it's working. So as you mentioned the point of platforms, I think today they are really gaining traction because they are giving a full-stop shop. You know, there are a few of them. On top of that, there are not 20 to address. And they give a unique access point with normalized way of working if it's a live content VOD. I don't know, like the buyers, what on the audience side, how they are managing that for advertisers, but on the technical activation, we have the ad server, we have the SSP, and bringing this all together, we're able to connect to any third-party ecosystem.
So from a technology perspective, you're looking to, because the question was specifically, there are different TV ad standards, and will technology be able to normalize and harmonize?
Yeah, so you have, if you consider CTV, you have ATSC in the US. In LATAM, you have EastDB TV. In Europe, you have HBB TV. So we are compliant with that standard. Because this one, for example, if you take HBB TV in Europe, there have been new improved standards to do live ad replacement, for example. It's the HBB TV 202. This one will come in at least 1.5 years because the TV set has to adopt the new standards. People need to buy a new TV, and today, if you want to do HBB TV linear ad replacement, you have 1 second black screen, which is not sustainable for the user experience. So that's why on this Samsung or Roku, you have SSI technology. It's really a seamless user experience. There's no change in that. After you have regulation, of course. In Europe, you have GDPR. So you need to have the consent to address targeting ads. You have local specific countries regulation. Like in France, you have the RPP. You need to have validation for your creative TV ads. And for programmatic, it's going to be the same. So you have a numerous of standards and regulation that we are addressing per country. If it's the UK, it's with VAP or measurement or Clearcast. So the technology side, for an SSP and a server provider, it's provide a lot of work, but that's the goal, is to provide a full ecosystem for a go-to-market strategy for any type of content owner.
Andrew, I just want to chime in too, because I think in all of this as well, whether it comes to the ad standards or some of the questions around fraud or brand safety, things like that, I think there is responsibility on the publisher side to be, having a hand in this. Obviously, it's about the publisher themselves creating brand safe environments in these different platforms, providing the content that looks like TV, that supports, the HD and high-end ad specs, because it's a lot easier to shift dollars or to convince a buyer to go a certain way if this content looks like the TV that they're used to buying, if they know that it's, the same high quality and that it's the same premium content. So I think that's the important piece. And as, the content side, the publisher side of the house, that's what we think a lot about as well, is how do we mirror those TV ratings that buyers are used to seeing? How are we providing transparency, and how are we aligning them with content that, again, looks like last night's TV or what they might be watching, and doesn't feel as digital when we're working with buyers?
So we're back to, there was something that came up when we all spoke about the golden case study, right? And I think it was Mike and perhaps it's a challenge to this panel because we have technology, we have a publisher, we have two people from, representing brands from the buy side, that the perfect CTV case study has yet to be figured out. Mike, do you want to expand on that? Because the challenge I'm going to make to this group is to come back next year, actually physically on the boat, and to present the golden case study.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think that before we even figure out who the brand is or what the inventory supply is going to be, I think we need to figure out what exactly are we trying to prove here? Are we trying to prove that streaming TV, CTV provides truly incremental reach to marketers? Are we trying to prove that it is a duplicative audience, but a better way to reach people? Because depending on what data you're looking at, what publishers you're buying from, and what measurement you're using, both of those things plus a lot more could be true. So I think there's still a challenge in the industry of figuring out what exactly we as a group want CTV to be able to provide for marketers in the short term. And if the answer is multiple things, that's great, but the approach needs to be tailored for the right approach. So an example would be, if you're looking to find reach incremental to linear TV viewership, you don't want to be buying virtual Mvpds because those ads are getting passed through. You don't want to be buying premium full episode player content because of Fluidity. You want to be buying from Vevo. You want to be buying from Pluto and Zumo and Tubi TV. Free ad-supported services that viewers are increasingly turning to supplement their content packages. So I think it's important that we figure out what exactly are we trying to prove out on, and then execute on that in order to have that golden case study.
Melissa?
I think that's interesting too, because I almost feel like that should be part of an internal brief. Like, what is your golden case study that you want to prove on behalf of your clients, right? Yes, your clients want to drive sales. We get that. But what's the Harvard Business Review press headline? Like, that could be interesting to, I think, challenge our internal teams to think through this in a different way, knowing that we're at this moment in time.
So nobody, I mean, I've heard Charles take some responsibility in the last few minutes for things, but in terms of developing this golden case study, it sounds like either yourself or Mike, Melissa will need to find that courageous client who has a specific goal or set of goals, who wants to test it against these formats, to use technology from Smart and Gerald and potentially content resources from Charles, and to really test out and prove out, for better or worse, what the viability and importance of the CTV and OTT formats really can be in a 360 plan, right? I think, just before we give everybody their last notes, I think it's important to remember, and Mike, we know you're new to the agency world and you look very young and spry, and we'll check with you next year on what 1 year in agency life has done to you. But that we often have these conversations about specific advances, and we forget that there's a lot of other activity that these brands are doing, which includes print and experiential and radio and social and who knows what else. So important for us to remember that this is a piece of the puzzle for the brands. And my last thing to say is, sometimes we're very deep inside of this, and pulling back kind of helps you understand other people's perspectives. For last licks, I'm going to start with Gerald. Any conclusions?
So I like the next year, what could be able to prove, or so I think in next year we will have more view on this new ways of advertisers pushing this new momentum for streaming, CTV, OTT, buying with programmatic, especially with the current period of the COVID-19. I think we all read that there's a lot of articles of advertisers are looking to leverage this shift of audience on new way of consuming video. I understood from that panel tactically, operationally, it's very difficult. I hope by next year we have several clients that we are deploying now. We will be able to show the value that no matter if it's a platform ecosystem like Samsung, or it's possible for any OTT content provider or apps to exist with buyers and drive revenue and efficiency of on both sides.
Thank you. Charles, your commitments to us for the case study for next year.
Yeah, Mike, Melissa, call me. We'll figure something out. Yeah, I mean, I look at it still as, you know, there's a lot of solutions out there. There's a lot of different clients with different different needs that they're going to have, especially as they continue to figure out what their comfort level is with these platforms and these different buying mechanisms. So, you know, we as a content provider that lives within these platforms look at ourselves as a partner, as a team that's able to help, you know, work through, you know, this time where there's still uncertainty in the market. And I think that, you know, there is, like I said before, there's no silver bullet for any of this. There's a good mix of platforms, of aggregation, of different buying methods, of working direct with publishers that I think everyone's still figuring out, but it's important to continue to test all these different options and opportunities moving forward in order to figure out what that right mix is going to look like moving forward.
Mike?
No, I mean, I think that my fellow panelists really hit the nail on the head, which is figuring out the right thing for the right client, looking into how to leverage best technologies that are out there and applying them across the board in a way that hits on the client needs, but takes advantage of, you know, the traditionality of what the important thing on the TV screen is.
And we're going to let Melissa close because I feel like we need to, you've done very well at sort of summing things up for us, but I want you to leave us with a
All right, let's say, I feel like the case study headline is not "we worked better together," but how do we harness all of this data in terms of better working together as an industry in the video space? Does that make sense?
This time next year, we will have that case study.
On the vote.
On the vote.
Yes.
On the vote. I want to thank everybody for joining. I think we're just at time. This has been informative and helpful. I believe there's a recording of it for those of us who need to go back and maybe we'll play it next year and we'll see how well we did. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.